This is our preparation and review checklist for an 1120S. This has proven to be one of the most popular topics I have ever talked about. Why? Apparently, either we're not using them or we're faced with those fantastic 17-page ones from some third party. Let me make it real clear. I understand that you use a 17-page checklist from PPC. That's going to beat the snot out of this thing. The problem is, I got to make money at what I do. And if I'm doing a 17-page preparation checklist, it becomes an exercise in how quickly can I check yes, instead of actually making me better. So what we did many years ago is we developed a checklist for the 1120S. You and I are going to go through it. I'm going to explain why various things are there. I will tell you in advance, for the first time in history, I've included some proprietary information in your 1040 manual. Your 1040 manual this year, for the first time ever, has my 1040 checklist as well. And again, it's a 2-page checklist. Why? I want something I'll use instead of something that doesn't miss any stone unturned. For 90% of our clients, particularly small business, this takes care of it. You got a client operating overseas in 27 states, you need something fancier than this. While we're at it, in the 1040 manual, there is also our Excel prep tool. We also have this year's fee schedule, just to give you an idea what other people charge. The engagement letter for 1040s is in there again, changed again from last year, and an interview sheet. Okay, so let's start here on page 3, and let's go through it, and let me please explain. Feel free to ask questions. Up at the top, it has client name and year end. Why? Come on, really? It goes in the current year client file. Bob, do you go through this? There are no exceptions. I fill this out for every client. Yeah, but you're by yourself. Even more reason to fill it out. Why? Come on, man, we all make mistakes. We all get tired. We all overlook stuff. This is to keep me from doing that. We used the same form when I had a large firm, 40 employees, 3 offices. I used an equivalent form. Why? Because it works for everybody of every size. Right underneath the client name, it says print all documents, support, correspondence, work papers. I don't care if you print it via paper or into a PDF electronically. If I have a client that I have called, let's say it's the end of the year. I'm doing their corporate tax return, and they just emailed me stuff, and I call them and I say, hey, did you guys change any stockholders this year? And they say, no. Did you change the address of any stockholders this year? No. Thank you. I hang up. I type a quick email to them confirming. Why? I am a big believer in paper trails. I type a quick email to them confirming, and it goes out. And it's immediately saved into their client file in TaxDome. I don't have to do anything. When I write it, TaxDome grabs it and throws it into that client's file. So we not only scan or confirm everything, we save all emails and texts. My TaxDome links to my cell phone and grabs those texts. If I've identified a phone number to the client, it'll grab it and put it right in the client file. Wow. Okay, the accounting work. Now, I want to point something out here on page 3. If you look at page 3, it says accounting work. If you look at page 4, it says tax preparation. And you'll notice page 4 is shorter than page 3. Why? Because the preparation on 1120S is harder in the preliminary status than it is in the preparation status. And it's all about being efficient. The more I do at the beginning, the better it becomes. Jump right in. The very first step, I will go no further if I don't have a signed engagement letter. Inevitably, somebody says, well, Bob, couldn't I get the engagement letter at the end? Well, let me ask you a simple question. If you need a new roof put on your house, is the roofer going to start ripping off shingles before you sign a contract? No. Aren't you a better business person than the roofer? Prove it. Get the contract. I will not do anything without an engagement letter, and it comes first. That's a sobering reminder, but I love that little example of a rooper. The second item, obtain and print an entire client transaction report to PDF. Most clients, particularly small size clients and sadly even mid-sized clients, they're using QuickBooks. I don't care if it's QuickBooks or Sage or whatever, Dillner's or Creative Solutions, or I don't really care. I want to know what I started with. So we print their entire year's transaction report for me to a PDF that goes into that client file, so that without exception I can go back even 19 entries later and see where things started. So I can paper trail me through what happened. I've got to be able to show where I started to show how I got there. What if you don't use paper? I'm sorry, you don't use electronics. Would you print all this to paper? I can't tell you. You got to call it. You know as well as I do, sometimes these reports are 200 pages long. So I can't answer. I don't know if I'd print a 200-page paper report to a client file. I will electronically. Okay, once I've printed that report, now what are we going to do? What is it, Bob, that you're going to rip apart? This is Bob's experience. You may want to change it, of course. Bob's experience. Number one, I want inventory. I will ask for a copy of an inventory account sheet. Yeah, and I have gotten that on occasion, once or twice in 50 years. What I am telling you is I will not accept something that says same as last year. They're going to write a number down for me. Why? Clients are required to take an inventory once a year. If they want to say it's the same as last year, that's on them. It's not going to be on me. I want it as an email or a fax or something from them to have that number, because I'm not getting in trouble over it. Okay. Second item, equipment. Now, this one is unusual. I presume that most of you folks have made that election, the de minimis $2,500. All right, so ours for years has been with clients, look, you buy something under $2,500, put it in we actually have a general ledger account called items under $2,500. Put it in there. I don't need any receipts for anything you put in there. Usually, not more than once, a client will ignore that rule, and if they buy an $800 attachment for a tractor, they still put it in the equipment account. Even though I've told them don't do it, they'll put it in there. And then the end of the year comes, and I'll say, now I need invoice copies on this, and this. The client says, what a pain in the butt. And my response is, if you'd have put it over there in the first place, I don't need to see it. So the first reason I do that is to make me more efficient. If I know I'm not going to look at it because it's under $2,500, I don't want to see anything. Second, IRS does not require me to see an invoice. This is practical experience. The client may tell me, yeah, I paid $25,000 for that new truck. On the invoice, it shows that they paid $18,000 plus a 2013 Chevy S10 that's still on depreciation schedule. And then they also had $900 of sales tax and a $2,200 snow plow. And if I don't have that invoice, I'm going to miss all that stuff. I want the invoice. Another reason is occasionally you'll have a client that buys something at the end of the year, and on the invoice it'll say to be delivered in January. What does that mean? It means it's not in service. I can't depreciate it. I want the invoice. That's why I do it. You may have different reasons. Next line, other assets, you call it whatever you're going to have there, not common. Notes payable. Our inquiry says I need a copy of every note. Now, there are a number of reasons here. First, some of the really sharp clients, if they got an in-house accountant, that's easy. The smaller they are, the less likely that is. So I just tell them, give me a note. Third, no one of them knows what the payoff is. And with the note, I can run an amortization schedule. What do you guys use? I use T-value. I can run an amortization schedule, throw it in the file, and keep it. Is the payoff on T-value equal to the payoff at the bank? No, but it's a whole lot closer than anything else. It's the way you got to look at it. At least it's close. So I want a copy of every note every year. We maintain them as a rolling file, until the loan's paid off. You may have a different mechanism. Common stock and equity. It is unlikely there is an entry in there unless they are a beginner and they use QuickBooks. in which case they probably have put something in opening balance equity. I've never had a client do that 2 years in a row. Why? Because if there's an entry in opening balance equity, they will never forget me erupting on them for changing the beginning numbers. And they either become a former client because they leave the way I acted, or they remember, don't you go putting anything in opening balance equity. Do you have an account called accountant or something like that? You're not sure, client, what to do? Put it there. Then we'll figure it out. But don't go messing with my equity accounts. Auto and truck. Now, I don't always look there. If I got a doctor and there's $841 in there, I'm not going to look at that. You got a materiality number. On the other hand, if I've got a landscaping company and there's $131,000 in auto and truck, I am going to look in there. What are you looking for? 2 things. 7 payments to First National Bank for $1,800 a month. All right, where they're putting their brand new truck they didn't tell us about, and they're running the payments through auto and truck. And then the other one, the $27,000 new truck, they put in auto and truck instead of equipment. Come on, I'm not doing anything you don't do. This is just common sense stuff. But do I look at every client's auto and truck? No. Do I look at every client repair? No. If it's a $5 million client and their repairs are $21,000, frankly, I'm not going to look there. If it's a $1 million client and their repairs are $21,000, I probably will glance at it. What are you looking for? Misclassifications, repeating payments, whatever, common sense. Payroll tax. Now, we're going to delve into an uncomfortable territory for all of us here. I do look at payroll tax as a quality control document. I'm going to tell you why on payroll tax, and then we're going to expand a little further here. I look at payroll tax because it's such an easy quality control. Payroll tax ought to be a little less than 10% of gross wages. Shouldn't it? 7.65% matching FICA and Medicare, throw in a little FUTA, little SUTA, maybe something from last year, something. It ought to be around 9%, meaning if gross wages are $600,000 and payroll tax comes in at $58,000, I'm not looking any further. If gross wages is $600,000 and payroll tax comes in at $190,000, I got a problem. The problem probably is gross wages are actually net wages, and I need to pull that out and gross it up. But I'm looking at payroll tax because it's so easy to common sense that number. Now, with payroll tax, I don't know what you guys do. I do know what I do. I require all 941s. I want all 4-quarter 941s. I also want all W-2s, not just the officers. I want everybody. Why? No, why not? What if you got a multi-state issue and they're withholding locality tax and you've got to report locality information to a city or county somewhere? I'm going to get it off those W-2s, what the wages were reported. All right, so I get W-2s, I get 941s. Some companies you might have a W-3, sometimes you don't. Usually you don't anymore, but you might. Why? I want the numbers. I want the right numbers. Now here is where we delve into a problematic area. I use UltraTax software. UltraTax will allow me to map the accounting software. Whatever it is, Creative Solutions, QuickBooks, Sage, whatever, I can map it so that I can export it out of the accounting software and will pre-fill the tax return. I know how to do that. You know how to do it maybe. Some of you might be doing it. I don't do it. Why? Bob, it's efficient. Yes, it is efficient. It's also my last checkpoint. What are you saying? The 1 year that I did map everything, I had a line called Other Tax and License. And included in that was payroll tax, property tax, a little locality taxes, maybe a little sales tax, maybe a little use tax. I had all these things lumped in there, and I couldn't look at that total and have an idea what's going on. For me, even when we are a large firm, we never mapped. I considered it a last tool of the preparer to manually transfer from the general ledger to the tax software. Does it take longer? Yes, it does. Does it allow me? I can tell you, 1 out of every 3 returns. As I'm putting an individual number over, I'll say, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. And I'll go further. So the reason isn't efficiency on this. The reason is I want to try to do a good tax return, and I don't want to get caught. You may disagree completely, and I understand. I'm just telling you what we do. We do not map. I look at every single line item, and I manually put that on the return. Now that brings a second piece. In 1978, I was trained in tick mark usage. 45 years later, I still use the same tick marks that I learned 45 years ago. You could pick up a general ledger from 1989 today and look at it and see what 17 different accounts were combined into office supplies. We don't have other people doing other tick marks. We don't have other employees. Everybody in my office uses now and has always used the same tick marks. I find it interesting over the years. Apparently, I have trained a lot of competitors in our area. Nearly everybody in our area at some point worked for me or indirectly. And what I find, that's okay. I have no problem. But what's funny to me is they're using the same tick marks that I use. Why? Why would you change when you got a system everybody can look at? What are you getting at, Bob? You get a general ledger on QuickBooks. You got 17 accounts you're combining into office supplies. You throw it into office supplies. 3 years later, they get audited, and you say, oh, my God, I have no idea what's in there. I do. I look at the general ledger, everything with an F. F is the office supplies tick mark. It has been for 45 years. I use another tool. There's a couple of things. Since mine is electronic, my tick marks are electronic. There are some softwares you can buy. One of them is called Tick, Tie, and Calculate. I don't use it a lot. I use it for a different purpose. I'll tell you in a second. But I actually, inside Adobe, if you're decent with Adobe, you can set up your own tick marks inside the software. So we've set them up years ago. Okay. Now, you know those tick marks, but if you've got different employees that use different marks, or one partner uses these, another partner uses those, you're never going to be efficient in that review or quality. Okay, now here's the other thing. What I do use, and I saw you shake your head, what I do use Tick, Tie, and Calculate for is, let's say we have 17 accounts I've added together to come up with office supplies. Come on, you know it. You're going to have envelopes and postage and all these weird little things. Tick, Tie, and Calculate has an on-screen calculator tape that I can pin to the general ledger. So I'll add those 17 things up, put them into this Tick, Tie, and Calculate. It adds them up on screen for me. I pin it to the general ledger. 3 years from now, not only can I see what went in there, I can see the tape that listed each one of them, added them up, and then that number gets tied over to the 1120S. Yes?
You said that your tick marks you can put in electronically. So by your travel file?
The tick marks electronically are what do they call it? Not an overlay. It's a plug-in in Adobe, so it doesn't change anything. But let's say I've got a line for postage. I just put a little F right there electronically next to the postage number.
So
in the PDF. Yes, in the PDF. One of the things I will also do in that Dropbox thing is I'm going to give you my tick marks. Why? Why not? You don't want them? Throw them away. But at least shows you what other people are doing. Okay, that takes care of most of the accounts that we're going to look at in the first third of this page. The next line says, ask clients for copies of new leases. Why? Because most of the time what they think is a lease, if you read it, it ain't a lease. It's 5 years of payments with a $1 buyout, meaning it's a purchase of a piece of equipment with a loan. I want every lease. Self-explanatory. Obtain or prepare. Here's something I've learned in recent years. Obtain or prepare the bank reconciliation. If they are under 45 years old, they have never done one. Now, I know we have fought this with clients for years, but your older clients or the clients with in-house full-time accountants, they at least probably have been doing bank reconciliations, or you got a shot. All right? I know I've had to do them for years. If they're under 45, there's not a shot I need to do it. Why? The most common response, I don't have to do a bank. I download the transactions every day from the bank. So I know what my balance is on the last day of the year. That is not a bank reconciliation because that doesn't include the $27,000 check that you have written that drives you to an overdraft. I have a simple rule. We will do your bank reconciliation if you haven't. And if I ask you for a bank rec and you show me the bank downloads, we're not doing that. I'm going to do a legal bank reconciliation. Yeah, well, I don't really need you to do that. Well, I don't really need to do your tax return. The older you get, the easier it is to say, I own this business, not you. It's my name on it, not yours. And we're doing it my way, not your way. And if you don't like it, good luck finding another accountant. It's time to realize that. Move back on. Unpaid payroll and sales tax. I don't really ask about this anymore. I always ask for the January transactions after the end of the year. Why? It's a whole lot easier just to look in there to see what got paid to the State Department of Revenues around the country, for sales tax, maybe any 941 deposits, etc. Maybe there's other accounts you look at. Then it says obtain or prepare loan amortization. Many times we're doing that ourselves. Loan payoffs. Yeah, you're hitting about 20% that the number they give you is real. Why? If you're like me, most of those are, I still have 27 payments of $1,900 a month. There's the payoff. Run the loan amortization. Okay. The inquire and identify cryptocurrency reporting. There is cryptocurrency activity that goes on in a corporation. And I got to ask about it. Hopefully they don't have it, but if they do, let's make sure we pursue it a little further. Payroll and health insurance, I need that information to make sure it's properly reported. Later discussion on health insurance. Identify and schedule non-deductibles, non-taxables, U.S. interest. All of this information is for state reporting or to reconcile it around rental activity. Why do I want to identify rental activity? If you're not familiar, I have to separately report that on the K-1. That's why I want to do it. Depreciation schedule. Basic rule of quality. Do the asset totals and accumulated depreciation totals on the balance sheet of the corporation equal to what you have on the depreciation schedule? You know it, I know it, yet every year I see the ones that don't. So basic rule of quality. Pension plans, adjust the accounts, tie them together. Inquire if other state or website activity is occurring. Remember when we talked about the big nexus discussion? That's what this is about. Now, our engagement letter does specifically say we're not doing any of that stuff for you. But we may bring the issue up to see if maybe you ought to hire us to look further. Near the bottom, it says if the C corporation in a prior 5 years. And what's that about? Built-in gains tax. Underneath there, these are just some common sense items. Every year I confirm location, officer's home, address. Are there new officers? What about shareholders? Have they changed addresses, etc.? Every year we will verify all of those things. If there is a new shareholder, you have to ask a question. Is this shareholder a U.S. individual citizen? Or are they a resident alien? Something like, they got to be qualified as a shareholder in an S-Corp. And although it's very rare, has anybody put any new money in? Finally, at the bottom, as we wrap up, and you can cut this in just a second, Jason, and then we'll do separately the other part. I always ask them, did you open any new stores? Why? Because you're going to be surprised. Cut it now. I'm going to tell you a story I did not want on. I had him record this little piece that I just did. Why? I just think it's useful. We're going to put it on YouTube where it's free for you guys. Why? Why not? It's useful stuff. Okay? But I don't want this story on there. The single worst mistake I made as a professional is what led to this question.